Now, what's really ahead for Jorge Masvidal? I mean, it's Miami. Let's get down to it. What is next for Miami's BMF champ? What could be happening for him? Okay, so Nick Diaz does this interview this week with Ariel Helwani, and he's talking about how he wants to avenge the loss for his baby brother. He throws a lot of stuff out there. It's a little bit incoherent with what direction he's going. He's going off on these tangents, and self-admittedly, and he's like, I know I go out on tangents. But he does make it clear. He doesn't like the fact that Masvidal was saying the things about baptizing his brother. That's my baby brother, all that stuff. So I'm the original BMF. That's my belt, all that stuff. And then throws out Jerry's World, wants to do a fight in Texas. And then Helwani comes with a clarification after the interview and says his team just wants to make clear. They didn't want to fight Jorge Masvidal next. They want to do it in the spring. And they want to do it at Cowboy Stadium in Jerry's World. The only thing, this is what I would say with the Nick Diaz fight with Jorge Masvidal. I'll be absolutely pumped if it happens. I want to just get that off the bat. Jorge Masvidal versus Nick Diaz, cool storyline. It writes itself. I feel like it would be a big success. I feel like it would. But I do wonder, from the current fan base's standpoint, the fan base that is, in with this every single day, watching every single card, you're watching Sao Paulo, all that stuff. Is Nick Diaz still the star that he was, or has Nate passed him? Because Nate was on two of the biggest UFC pay-per-views of all time. He was. He fought Conor McGregor, a bona fide star, and he got the rub. He got it shown that he's also a big star, and he's a big reason for that. And a lot of people say, well, Nate was a big reason why that fight was as big too. The Diaz name was, but let's be honest with it, it was really Conor McGregor. He was hotter than ever. I mean, Conor McGregor was, let's not forget what that was supposed to be. That fight was supposed to be against Rafael dos Anjos. It was supposed to be Conor McGregor going for his second weight class title. The guy was the hottest thing on the planet combat sports-wise. But it did, a lot of these people who are of the Conor McGregor fan base, like we could say, like, I do feel like there's a divide of the guys who people think are like the greatest, George St. Pierre, Anderson Silva. There's that era of superstar in the UFC, and then there's the people who caught on to the Conor McGregor wave, the Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey wave of those guys being the top two, Ronda and Conor. And Nick is in that old era. He is in the old era of GSP, Anderson Silva. And you remember when GSP came back to fight Michael Bisping for the middleweight championship? It was cool. He's the greatest of all time. He's arguably the greatest of all time. Came back for a second belt. But something was just a little bit off as far as people caring about George St. Pierre the way you thought they would care about George St. Pierre. And I feel like with Nick, I think everybody who's in it, the people who love the sport, the hardcores, we're all going to love it. Ariel Helwani, who has been covering the sport since forever, he's going to love it. He says he gets goosebumps over it. Cool. The people who have covered the sport, the Chael Sonnens, all those people, yeah, they love it. But they're kind of in it. It's hard not to love it because you love Nick Diaz and you love what he stands for and all that stuff. But I'm talking about what really does make more money. Nick Diaz or George Masvidal fighting for the title. I don't necessarily know that it's Jorge Masvidal. I mean, if you were to tell me that Colby Covington wins the belt in a couple of weeks and he's the undisputed welterweight champion of the world and his number one contender is Jorge Masvidal, with the bad blood those guys have slung between each other, the legit bad blood, the fire and ferocity that those guys have been spewing at each other for a while now, I'm gonna go with in this era of people wanting to jaw back and forth. I'm saying that's a bigger pay-per-view draw than fighting Nick Diaz and Masvidal fighting for the undisputed championship, because that's just the day and age we're in. I don't know if there's enough hardcore fans that are going to carry a pay-per-view by that are like, yes, Nick is here to avenge his brother. It's like, okay, I mean, I guess it's a cool story, and again, I'd be fired up if it happens, but I don't necessarily know if it's this banging blockbuster pay-per-view that everybody thinks that it's going to be. Because he's going to what? He's going to not show up to the press conference. He's going to do the bit where he doesn't show up to the press conference. We saw with Nate versus George. It wasn't, the press conferences, they weren't that fire. They didn't really go at each other very much. And that stuff matters these days. It also had the pomp and circumstances with The Rock, the BMF title, all that stuff. I don't know if that can be recaptured in a Nick Diaz fight. I really don't. So while it's cool to see Nick Diaz wants Jorge Masvidal and wants that matchup and wants to avenge the loss that his brother took to him, and doesn't like the fact that, he said things like, "Oh, baptize my baby brother" and all that stuff. It's great, and if it happens, it happens. That's awesome. But I don't think it's this slam dunk everybody thinks that it is from a business standpoint. I really, really don't. I think that there are other fun matchups. I think Masvidal becoming world champion and then maybe fighting Conor McGregor later on in the year, I think those are absolute slam dunk monster fights. And the Nick Diaz stuff, the Diaz stuff in general, I think it's always going to be there for Jorge Masvidal. I really, really do. But it was fun to see Nick back. It was fun to see him back in action.